Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to TLBTV, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance. I am your host, Roger Landry. And today we have a very special show because we're going to talk to somebody who has a passion for something that really, really interests me. And some of the topics we're going to be talking about really piss me off in a very, very big fashion. And of course, as usual, I'm joined by my phenomenal co-host, which is Rebecca Mann, who has her own show, which is already two episodes into a brand new series. And that is Rebecca Sounds Reveille. So if you get a chance, please watch her shows as well. Do me a favor, Rebecca, introduce this phenomenal guest. And when I say phenomenal, let me tell everybody one more thing. She is right now the newest member of the TLB family. She is a contributor, and we're going to talk her into doing a little bit more TV than what she actually thinks. So take it away, Rebecca, please.
Well, I'd like to welcome Lorana Hoopes. She's with us today, and she's an author. She's got 3 books, and in process of running a whole bunch more and writing a whole bunch more. So I've got to tell you, these do keep her running around as busy as it is for authors trying to get everything perfect from not only writing, but in her instance, illustration, as well as cover design and so on and so forth. But she's extremely well at what she does, and she's got quite a background, and especially in the education system where she currently uses her talents in reaching such a wonderful age group. I will let her share a little bit more about all of these things, and not only that, but where you can find her information. But I do want to say that she is a new contributor to TLB, like you said, Roger, and she couldn't be more of an asset with the information that she not only has acquired, but is experienced and is seeing firsthand. So I'd like to welcome you, Lorana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I need to set the stage here. I really, really do, because we have a limited amount of time. This is basically just an intro for you, but there are a few things I'd like to get out to the audience, okay? Prior to pushing the record button here, and for anybody who's looking for information on how you can follow Lorana and how you can find out a little bit more about her books, all of that is included in the article that this video is embedded in. So, look, you and I started a discussion prior to pushing the record button, and that was about Common Core education and what is happening to our children today. There will be a link to both articles you've already written for the Liberty Beacon Project, and they will be in this in this article as well, so people can go and read those articles. I want you to start off because, look, it goes this way, okay? You're not born with wisdom. You're born with intellect. Wisdom comes from having made a million mistakes or observed a million happenings and learning a lesson from each of them. You have wisdom on the education system, and you have proven that to me just in the way you write your articles. Let's start this all off by you telling us why you wrote these books and what you personally think of the general education system. There are some areas out there that are accelerating, some private schools, so on and so forth, that are doing quite well. But let's talk about the general public system. Let's talk about your frustrations. Let's talk about your books. Let's talk about you, because by God, I really like what you represent.
Well, thank you. So I am in my 12th year of teaching, And when I originally got into teaching, I was working as an educational assistant. I had done some time in radio, I had managed, and I had moved to the Pacific Northwest and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I was working as an educational assistant, and I realized that all the kids were coming back to the table where I was and having me re-explain the concept because they weren't getting it from the teacher. And I thought, well, if I'm having to do all the explaining anyway, I might as well be teaching it. So I went back and got my teaching degree. And I started teaching, and for the first couple of years, it was pretty good. We have this thing in education, we call it the pendulum swing. And so nothing ever stays the way it should. About every 5 years, some new concept comes along. And when I first started, we had standardized tests, but they were pretty much the standard across, I think, what most states did. And then about halfway in, they started changing. Because we had a new superintendent, and I thought, oh, great, this new superintendent, he's going to come, he's going to make some changes. And he did, but really he kind of renamed the test so he could put his name on it. And then our state spent a ton of money printing what was almost exactly the same test to hand out to these kids. And I taught English when I first started, just English. And I realized I was spending so much time just trying to prepare these kids for this test and answering the questions the way that the test wanted them to answer, not necessarily a way a kid might answer, but specific way the test wants them to answer, that we were losing so much education time. So I started to get involved in my state on the testing side.
I want you to address one specific comment that really stood out. Actually, it slapped me right across the face, okay? You said the goal is to have everybody pass the test. But if they want everybody to pass the test, why are they throwing out the questions that all the kids are getting right? This is a corporatist system trying to teach our children. What purpose, what right, where do they even get off meddling?
Yeah, I don't know. That was the biggest eye-opener for me, because in the school system, we were told you have to have a 100% pass rate. You have to have a 100% pass rate, which by itself is daunting. But then when I went and it was a committee that was supposed to look at the validity of questions. And so, yes, if there was a question that was too hard, only like 20% of the kids got it right, we threw that question out. But then if it was a question where 80% of the kids got it right, they also threw it out. And I asked them in the committee, I said, how in the world is a school ever supposed to reach 100% pass rate if we're throwing out questions that the kids are getting right? And they said, well, then it's too easy, and we're not really testing what we're supposed to be testing. And I was like, well, maybe we're just teaching the kids better and they're finally understanding. But it was never acceptable. It was not an acceptable answer.
Are you kidding me? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I mean, even to think about, only teach them what they're going to need to answer on the test versus allowing them to absorb a ton of information and really learn.
Yeah. Well, there was another committee I was on where we looked at the answers and we decided like how it would fit in the score system. And there was this kid who had answered this question way more advanced than what they had asked. But because he didn't use specific details from their text, they were like, well, we can't give this a passing score. And I fought them. I said, I'm not going to fail this kid because he's too smart for your test. That's ridiculous.
Well, I have seen over and over again, and I told you I have done a lot of research and written many articles and done several shows on Common Core. And I have seen this facilitated over and over and over again, whereas a child who has some homeschooling, all right, learns that if you want to do 25 times 5, you put the 25 up here, you put the time sign, you put the 5 here, you put a line, you do it, well, 125, okay? And it's simple to do. And how many children today actually get that wrong on the test because they do it that way instead of putting all of these things in a row and little circles going from this to this and jumping to this and making this go away and adding this. And you've got 30 steps with what some bright child who has a little bit of homeschooling can do in 3 steps. And what do? We discourage them from finding the best answer in the quickest possible time. We literally discourage them. We make them common.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm ranting. Go ahead. Tell me what you think of that.
No, it's true. My oldest son is 7 and he's in 1st grade. And last year when we had, I think it was earlier this year when we had his conference, I was just floored because this math problem that he was showing me how to add took him 10 minutes because he was he was labeling this thing up, and then he was loading this thing up, and then he was borrowing from this. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I could have taught you how to do this and you'd have been done 5 minutes ago. And I feel like I've lost 5 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. And he's catching it. And I understand that it's great for some kids who need to know why they do what they do.
But hold on, did you know that if you teach your child to do it the way you learned how to do it, and they go to school and said, my mother told me to do it this way, you can literally be in trouble.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. And when I teach a math class now, and I tell my kids, I'm like, look, I'll show you the Common Core way, because some of you may catch it this way. I wasn't raised Common Core. I don't think Common Core. I was like, so I'm also going to show you the easiest way to do it. And then I will, as long as you show me the steps, I'm going to grade it, you know? So, but I do talk to them about the test, because the test won't let them do that. You know, the test is, if it wants it one way, you have to do it that way. And if you don't do it that way, you don't get credit. So I show them both ways, but then, you know, I let the kids work with which way is easiest for them, because the Common Core way is not the easiest way for all kids.
Well, that's an interesting thing to think about in respect of age group, because I know that the education system is looking for people to teach. And if you're going to go in and say you are excellent in math and the test is in Common Core and our age group was never taught that, you're not going to pass that part of the test so that you can become a teacher.
Right.
You're a moron.
So
you're a brilliant moron.
That makes sense. And we're wondering why our education system is not getting enough qualified candidates.
Well, and why people don't want to stay. I mean, we've got Common Core, and then my state just came up with this new teacher evaluation system that really is nothing more than teachers having to do a ton of extra work to show that they're a good teacher, instead of just having the administrators come in and watch and talk to my kids. So nobody wants to stay because there's so much extra work that's not really beneficial for the kids.
I think a lot of people think the teaching system limits teachers because of funding, and that a lot of teachers have to pay their own for their own supplies within the classroom and things like that. But there's obviously a lot more that's involved here that we don't even realize is having an effect, not just on our children, but as adults and in the workforce. This is just absolutely baffling. And I'm wondering, as far as when you mentioned time consumption, for the, you know, someone who would normally go in and evaluate you in comparison to how much they are reading into the work that you have submitted to them. So how much more is on their plate now?
A ton. So now a principal who has teachers that are on comprehensive, they have to watch them on these 9 different standards. They have to look through all of the evidence for these 9 different standards. And if you're a principal, I mean, our school's pretty small, but we have about 60 teachers. So each principal has 30 teachers. And at some point, there's about 10 of us on comprehensive, and the other 20 that might be on their plate are on focus. So they're only looking at 1 or 2 areas. It's so much more work even for the administrators. And then the administrators also have their own stuff they have to do based on our evaluations that they then have to give to their higher ups. Mm-hmm. So they're inundated with more paperwork as well. I honestly don't know how administrators will be able to keep this system going with this comprehensive program.
Let me ask you this real quick. So if I wanted to run out and get a Behringer, copy of the CBEST so I could study for it, is it up to speed? Yes, for those of you who don't know, is a test that those who want to be teachers have to take to get hired. They've got to pass these skills tests.
Yeah, it depends. In my state, it's set up based on your degree as well and what you did in college. So when I got my teaching program, they said take as many tests as you can because we can sign off all your endorsements at one time.
Okay. Okay.
So I ended up leaving the teaching program with a K-8 and an English 412 and a reading K-12. And then when I got hired at my current job, they wanted me to teach social studies. And I was like, I don't know, teach social studies. So I had to pass the test, and I was only able to pass the test because it was linked closely to an English curriculum. So if I had gone in with a math endorsement and then wanted to take and add a history, I would have had to go back through a program and have another evaluator come out and watch me again. And I would have had to go through additional steps, and it would have cost me a couple of $1,000s to add an endorsement.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a lot more involvement in the entire teaching structure, all the way from the teacher's aide, all the way up through the principal and even their bosses. But I want to, we've got time to discuss one more topic here. And I know you're probably thinking I already have, but I haven't. Okay, you haven't seen some of my shows. I want to get blatant here, because what really pisses me off about the education system today, about the political correctness of the educational system today, and I love that little look you just made when I used the PC words, politically correct, okay? We have a generation that is being raised, believe it or not, the generation that's growing up today, the newest generation that's in school, are more conservative leaning than any generation in the last 50 to 60 years. And this is a fact, it's not a guess, okay? And that's because they're rebelling against their parents, and most of that generation are extreme liberals.
Right.
And this is obvious, even to the most casual observers. All right, so what we're looking at today in the system of education is we're raising a generation to be common. When I went to school, and I'm 62 years old, okay? When I went to school in the 70s, or very early 70s, the late 50s to the all the way through the 60s, if I excelled, then I was actually rewarded for excelling, and I was put in a special class, or I was given special recognition, or I was given. If I fell way behind the rest of the class, again, I was given special attention. I was put in a special class, and everything was done in order to single me out so that I could receive the special help without retarding the growth, okay, and the education of the majority of the class. Today, we are raising a generation of common children, whereas if I excel, I'm going to get a ribbon. But the kid that really didn't is going to get a ribbon anyway because he tried. And the kid that really did bad is going to get a ribbon anyway because he went to school that day. And the child who is there trying to excel and looking at everybody else getting as much recognition as he is ends up with a mindset of, why should I?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're seeing is Common Core is forcing a generation of common children. This is not what education is for. Please take that rant and go with it if you can.
Well, and another thing that, I mean, I totally agree with you. And a lot of even our advanced classes now, when I taught at my previous school, I taught the accelerated English. And there was a system, and we had parents who would fight us every single time because we had a criteria, and we were like, your kid does not meet the criteria to be in this. And they would say, well, but I want my kid in there. And it would go all the way up to the school board, and the school board would come back and say, you have to let the kid in. And it became where it wasn't, even for an advanced, English course, it wasn't as advanced as it could be because we had these kids who didn't really meet the criteria that we had to
making it more common. Yeah.
And it made it more common. Exactly. And nobody wants to talk about leveling classes because, heaven forbid you put a label on a kid and say that they're struggling. But if we're putting the high advanced in with the low learners and then all the middle, then the only thing we can teach to is the middle. So we're still not helping the struggling reader, and we're not helping the advanced kid. But we're sure making those kids in the middle feel good. And I guess that's really what the focus is right now, is let's just make everyone in the middle feel good.
We're going to be talking about this much, much more in the future because we're going to do additional shows. But right now, we're just about at the end of this. And Rebecca, what I'd like you to do is wrap this up and let people know how this phenomenal individual sitting right in front of us is going to be a part of the Liberty Beacon Project family going forward. I am extremely pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
I really, really am. You are the answer to my prayers for the answers we need to eradicate the programmed ignorance out there on the subject of education. Let me explain one more thing, then I turn it over to you, to Rebecca. And this is short. It's very short, okay? Our children are the future of this country. If we fail them, we fail America. Nothing is more important than our children's education. Nothing is more important than our children's education. So when I say I am extremely pleased to see you sitting in front of us, I'm not joking.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you viewers for taking the time to get a little bit more familiar with our new contributor to the Liberty Beacon Project, Lorana, and you will be able to find out more information also from not only our website, but if you Google her name, and she's got 3 books that are just ready to rock and roll here for you, and I think will be not only an inspiration to you, but for anyone who reads, and to the children also that are reading. So lots going on with her. You'll love her writing. She is just phenomenal at what she does. And she is also going to be having her own television show right here on the Liberty Beacon Network.
Yes, I figured out what I'm going to call it now.
Well, hold, no, you can't say.
I can't say.
That's
Okay.
a surprise, because we
It'll be
will be doing an intro show for your show. Okay?
Perfect.
And you will announce it there. So that's a little suspense for everybody watching right now. You almost told them, but you didn't. So for everybody watching, this has been TLBTV. Okay, and we are bringing you Eradicating Programmed Ignorance with phenomenal guests. We wish you all a very pleasant day.